She was supposed to be at work that morning, but Sherri Jackson never arrived. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And for 19 months, her family had one question. Where was Sherri? Police had already arrested the man they believed was responsible, but he wasn't telling them where she was. Then, on June 26, 2008, he made a deal, and he finally told investigators where to dig. Behind his mother's house was the answer her family had been waiting for: a grave. Before we continue, if you follow real true crime stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. More cases like this are coming. On November 29, 2006, 27-year-old Sherri Denise Jackson was reported missing in Greensboro, North Carolina. She wasn't just a missing person case. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone who was expected to show up for work that morning. And according to her mother, Clara Jackson, Sherri was wonderful from the inside out. But investigators would soon turn their attention toward a man Sherri had been dating. His name was DeCarlo Rayshawn Bennett, and within weeks, he would be arrested and charged with first-degree murder. But there was a problem. Police had a suspect. They had no body. And for the next 19 months, Sherri's family would have to live without knowing where she was. Before this became a murder case, Sherri Jackson was simply Sherri, a 27-year-old woman from Greensboro who had family, friends, and people who cared about her. Her mother, Clara, remembered her as someone who loved doing things for other people. Her father, MacArthur Jackson, had also met DeCarlo Bennett. He said he had spoken with him several times. He had hoped Bennett would be the right man for his daughter. He couldn't have known how different the future would become, because just weeks before Sherri disappeared, Bennett had already been charged with assault at her apartment. That case was still pending. And on November 29th, Sherri disappeared. October 31st, 2006. Halloween night. Police were called to Sherri Jackson's apartment. DeCarlo Bennett was charged with assault. The case was still pending when Sherri disappeared. At the time, no one could know what that charge would eventually mean in the larger story. But less than a month later, Sherri failed to arrive at work. She was reported missing. Her family began searching. Friends began looking for answers. And investigators started trying to understand what had happened to her. Then came the arrest. In December 2006, Bennett was arrested in Wake Forest, North Carolina. He was charged with first-degree murder. But even with a suspect in custody, one question remained. Where was Sherri? At his first court appearance, Bennett faced the murder charge through a video monitor. Bond was denied, but investigators still couldn't bring Sherri home. There was no public discovery of her remains, no final explanation of what had happened, and no answer for her family. The case had entered a strange phase. The man accused of killing Sherri was behind bars, while Sherri herself remained missing. Months passed, then more months. Winter became spring. Spring became summer. And still, nothing. 19 months. That's how long Sherri's family waited for the answer. And during all of that time, Bennett remained silent about the location of her remains. Imagine knowing someone you love is gone, but not knowing where they are. For Sherri's family, that was the reality. There was no grave to visit, no place to say goodbye. Only questions. Where had she been taken? What had happened to her? And where was her body? If you're following the investigation so far, leave a like and subscribe. Because what happened next would finally reveal where Sherri had been for 19 months. Investigators had arrested Bennett months earlier, but the location of Sherri's remains remained unknown. Until June 2008. Something changed. A plea agreement was reached. Bennett would plead guilty to second-degree murder, and he would reveal where Sherri's remains had been buried. For the first time in 19 months, investigators had a location. June 26, 2008. Investigators followed Bennett to a home on Pine Meadow Court in Greensboro. It was his mother's home, and somewhere in the backyard was the answer everyone had been waiting for. Investigators searched the property. Then they found her remains. Sherri Jackson had finally been located. After 19 months of uncertainty, her family finally knew where she was. But finding Sherri raised another painful question. What had actually happened to her? The autopsy would provide one answer. Sherri had been strangled, but many of the details surrounding her death would remain publicly unknown. The same day Sherri's remains were found, Bennett pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. The original first-degree murder charge had been reduced as part of the agreement. The sentence would be measured in years. For Sherri's family, it was difficult to understand. A young woman had lost her life. Her family had spent 19 months searching for her, and the man who admitted killing her had received a reduced charge through a plea agreement. But the justice system had made its decision, and now the family had something they had been denied for almost 2 years. A place to mourn, a place to remember Sherri. But there was still a painful reality. They would never get the years back, and many questions about November 29, 2006, would remain unanswered. What happened inside the home that day? How was Sherri's body moved? Did anyone else know where she had been buried? And why did it take a plea agreement for investigators to finally learn where she was? Those questions remain part of the story. What is known is that Sherri's remains were recovered from the backyard of Bennett's mother's home. An autopsy determined that she had been strangled, and Bennett ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. But there was never a public, detailed account explaining every moment of what happened to Sherri. For her family, the truth would always have missing pieces. More than a decade passed. Then, on January 23, 2021, DeCarlo Bennett was released from prison after serving approximately 12 years and 4 months. For the people who had spent years remembering Sherri, his release brought the case back into the public eye. Her friends and supporters continued speaking her name, and the Sherri Jackson Foundation continued its work raising awareness about domestic violence. Because although the criminal case was over, Sherri's story wasn't. There is something haunting about the way this case ended. For 19 months, Sherri was missing. Her family didn't know where she was. Then one day, the man who pleaded guilty to killing her finally told investigators where to look. And behind a house on Pine Meadow Court, they found the answer. But an answer isn't always the same thing as closure. Sherri was 27 years old. She had a mother who loved her, a father who wanted the best for her, friends who refused to let her name disappear, and a story that continues to be remembered decades later. The case is legally closed, but some questions never received answers. And perhaps that's what makes the story of Sherri Jackson so difficult to forget. Because for 19 months, someone knew where she was. Her family didn't. And all they could do was keep searching. If Sherri's story stayed with you, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. It helps keep stories like hers remembered. And if you want to hear more true crime documentaries, stay with us. Because every case has a story, and every victim deserves to be remembered.